Hey everybody, this is Dark Guardsman, and we're back here with another status update on ICBM Classic. Might also kind of use this as a bit of a chance to talk about a few of the features as well. So let's go ahead and create a new world since I've already messed up the last one. And we'll do this one as a super flat just so we have a nice level playing field to work with. So far, we're still a bit more work to do on ICBM Classic before we actually release the beta, so I'll go ahead and start off with that. But we're almost there. One of the recent changes, or actually a couple recent changes, one, I've cleaned up a lot of bugs, so there's been numerous bugs. Still a lot of graphic stuff to fix, but we now have multi-blocks. So let's go ahead and pull out, go ahead and tier 3 setup real quick. So the frame piece now has a multi-block, it'll now break. I still have to work on the breaking textures, but all of the blocks actually do break. The frame actually has the same thing, all the blocks are there. If I break any one of them, it'll break as well. And if you're not in creative mode, it will drop. And of course the screen didn't have a multi-block, but now it's all set up. So everything works, it's all connected. Cool thing that I went ahead and did while I was working on the multi-blocks, and actually get the multi-blocks cleaned up, fixed, and no longer crashing the world when they actually build, is that every piece now will relay power. It's something I did in the 1.7 version, but not to the same extreme. So now even this block will pass any connection to this one, and this one will pass connections to this one. And this one will actually, I was going to pass connections back, then realized I was going to infinite loop, and then second, this actually has battery slots hidden in it, and I'm going to be implementing at some point in time. So I'm probably going to be cleaning up this GUI, which I still have yet to transfer back over to its old texture. But when I go to do that, I'm going to try to work in some battery slots into this, that way you can effectively, portably charge this and it actually will be usable. Almost every machine does have battery slots that'll get used, so these actually do work. And we'll go ahead and use actual additions here. So a few people will keep thinking like actual additions is one of my mods. It is not. This actually is LPEX mod. He did a pretty good job on it with a few other developers. They've been working on it. It's a cool mod. I ended up throwing it in here because I was working with the all the mods team to work on their pack, and this is one of the mods they had in there that actually had power and fluids, and I needed to test buckets, so we ended up grabbing this mod. But let's go ahead and grab their generator, because I actually like using their generators. They look really, really cool. Their textures are not the best, but that's kind of not what the beauty of them. So the beauty of these is the fact that they actually have a three-dimensional face on them. But yeah, so you can surround this thing with cool generators, and the fact is you can actually do this with them. This will actually work, because the multi-block right here, so these top two are actually multi-block tiles, and the bottom is actually the frame itself. So these will translate connections down to the frame piece, which then will translate connections to the base, which the base is actually this little pad at the bottom here. The rest of these are multi-blocks on the side, and we'll go over how the multi-block code works a little bit more in detail. But you actually could do something like this, and you could pretty much surround this thing in generators if you really wanted to. It looks a bit ugly, but if you want power, that's how you get power. Now let's go ahead and fill these up and start charging. Yesterday's video, it took a bit of a while to charge. I am definitely going to be working on balancing that out. So I was going to just leave the values as is, because it kind of is a nice little tiering gate to have that power requirement, but then I'm realizing people do play with mods that do not produce reactor or big reactor level power. I think it's the name of the mod, big reactors, or I think it's extreme reactors now is what the name changed to. I have not been following other mods as closely as I should, but we'll get all these all fueled up, and this should power. And there we go. Power is now being displayed down here. This is another thing I need to work on, is also the power display, get this all cleaned up. Right now selling the missile silo is empty, so not only can you do an actual power system here, you can actually do inventory. This should work with everybody's inventory system, so pipes should work, so it should all work. I haven't tested it because I don't have that stuff in my environment, but this should actually translate stuff. So you got slots, you got an open silo here, and we should be able to just put a chest here and dump a whole bunch of missiles on the top, and it should work. So let's go ahead and let's get some non-destructive ones out here. So I'm thinking incendiary right now. I was testing yesterday, and I was going to do a big time lapse of several missile silos all firing, and they ended up shooting and blowing themselves up, and I was like, ah. But that'll suck into here, and this will put a missile in here, and there you go. You have an autoloader, and it works, and this will work on, once again, all the multi-block parts. So if you put a chest up at top here, you put it back here, it'll work. I might see if we can put some kind of handling on the screen itself to get it to work where you can attach a pipe to that, and then it'll translate over to the launcher. And there is a trick to doing this. I'll have to write some wrapper code to make it work, as Minecraft expects, or rather Forge expects, pretty much a single inventory per tile. So if it only wants one inventory, I can only return one inventory, so I have to then do what the Minecraft chest does. In order to get two chests working, how the Minecraft chest does it is you have the left inventory and the right inventory, and it wrappers them together into a single inventory, and then returns that single inventory every time you access it with a little bit of handling to make sure it still works. So yeah, that'll work, and all we have to do now is synchronize this up, and let me go ahead and set the frequency to say like 3 or something, and let's get the remote detonator out. So we already did, I think it's like shift right click. This may no longer work as expected because of the fact that I may have not put the shift handling code. That is really unfortunate. So let's go ahead and set up the radar gun then. Let's go kill these slimes. I always hate slimes. They're annoying. Okay, data is transferred, and let's go ahead and get a switch set up. I have to work on the redstone controls as well, so I noticed yesterday that we weren't getting good direct transfer, and there's also still some rendering bugs where you can't see the missile. I have no clue why that's really being caused, because of the fact that there should be nothing that should cause that to happen. But yeah, here we go. We got missiles auto-launching. We can sort of see them launch when they go out of the tube here. Looks like that's being charged up here. Even with that many generators, that takes a while to charge. And yeah, that'll go up in the air. It's really unfortunate that we can't see the missile be flying over, because it does look really nice. And the accuracy is just a little too good today. Let's go ahead and break the frame on the back and get the accuracy up just a little bit. Or get the accuracy down, rather, so we get a nice spread. By the way, for those who have not used ICBM, the frame piece in the back is 100% optional. You don't have to have it. So that should now break accuracy. Yep, breaking accuracy, and now it should be going everywhere. Nice square blocks of fire. Not sure I'll ever change that. I kind of like how it's nice and square blockish. It works well. So that's the changes when it comes to the launcher itself, and that applies to all 3 tiers. All 3 tiers are basically the same launcher. So if we get those out, let me go ahead and clear my hotbar. So all of these should work the same. All the renders work really nice for them too. Well, I'm still going to be probably cleaning up, because you notice I've got some Z fighting where the pieces are going back and forth. It's very likely what we're going to do is take something like Blockbench, which is a new version of Techne, pretty much, and redo all these models. And I think what I'm going to do is break them up into pieces. You know how the multi-blocks have pieces right here? I think what I'm going to do is have the multi-blocks individually render these pieces on their own, because what we're going to do is we're going to be transitioning away from what it used to be. Voltage's multi-block system is what we're using, and building a custom system just for each of the tiles. So that way, instead of this being what's effectively Voltage's multi-block, it'll then become launcher frame base, and then it'll have like a block state system like left number 1. And then left number 1 will then render this piece, and then left number 2 will render this piece, and left number 3 will render this piece. And we'll have a nice clean system, and it will be really easy to work that all together to actually make a multi-block structure that is really nice and fluid. Because the one thing with this is, in order to get like where if I turn my screen sideways and this doesn't stop rendering, you have to actually increase the render bounds on this and actually get it all up and everything. Because this block right here in the middle is what actually does all the rendering code. So we end up rendering everything from the center block, and the rest of these blocks are pretty much empty. They don't do anything, they don't render, they're just there, so that way when I walk forward I collide in them, or when I place like a hopper, it'll actually connect. So that's all that. Another change I actually ended up implementing is I implemented the new config system, which I should get back here, configs. So for those who don't know, when you go to mod options, you can actually click a mod, and you can go in here and you can click config, so it'll give you config options. And we have settings for everything else. You can change antimatter blast size, you can change breaking bedrock, you can change like the exothermic thing. Eventually we're going to have settings for all of the explosives, all their radiuses, sizes, everything in here. We can't do recipes from here, unfortunately, without doing a lot of work, so that's not going to happen. Especially since in 1.13 you guys are going to have full control of the recipe system thanks to Minecraft. You can now change it to not use energy, so if we turn this off right here and hit done, these machines will no longer use energy. So if I actually place down a screen, which by the way, the screens themselves are the ones that actually contain all the power. So if we do put these down, it's going to say we don't have electricity, but it probably will let us actually fire. So this should work, in theory. So if I put a conventional missile in here, and let's just set the screen. We'll use a radar gun, I think. this should actually work. If this doesn't work, I need to go back and do some more testing with it. So the power code that turns off the power usage was just implemented here earlier today. Yeah, it looks like it's not going to let it launch just because it's going to save 0 power down here. So there's a little bit more work left to do on that. But the configs are there, so that way when I actually do get them working, they will actually do a lot of stuff. The launcher stuff's here. This stuff does work, so you can actually change the range of all the launchers. Right now the tier 1's 1,000 meters, 3,000 meters, and 10,000 meters. This is in blocks. 1 meter is 1 block for those who have never figured that out. So there is a limit on the range. This is really just done because chunk loading isn't a thing right now. And then 2, this kind of forces you to build launchers closer to each other. But if you guys want to do cross-map launchers, once I get the chunk loading system enabled, go ahead and just crank this stuff up. There is no upper limit on it, and there is technically not a lower check on it. I probably will add a lower check on it as well, just to add some system. I do know that underneath general, the handheld launcher, it does have a limit on here, so if you try to set this below 1 and above 4, it will break, because there is only 4 tiers of launcher, or 4 tiers of missile, and it starts at tier 1, I believe. Yeah, it should be right. So you can change this. Right now you can only go up to tier 2 with the handheld, but if you say, one example, wanted to fire red matter out of a handheld launcher, why not in creative mode, you can change this to 4, and it will actually work. I'm not going to show that off though, but so this is all good. So there's a config system there that will expand over time. I'll slowly do that. How that's actually handled is this way. This is the reason why it's going to have to expand over time, and I'm not going to get to all of it right away. Is there's no easy way to procedurally generate all the configs when you use Forge's annotation system. So each time we add a config, I have to come in here and actually put a config system in here. And if somebody wants to, they can actually come in here and add configs as well. I do accept pull requests on the code base from anybody who wants to actually work on that. Now, since I did say I would explain how the multi-blocks work in a comment, and I don't know if I actually mentioned earlier in the video, let's go over that real quick. So let's see if we can find something here. So the multi-block system is custom built. It's the same system that's in Volt's engine for 1.7 right now. It's highly simplistic and somewhat reminiscent of Calculabia's old multi-block systems. Not as complicated as his. His were a little over the top. The system works under the most basic principle. You just keep track of your coordinates per rotation. So in this case, we're in the launcher base, so basically these things right here is what we're looking at. There's only 2 rotation types for it. It's got a north-south and an east-west rotation. Doesn't matter what direction we're in, because if we're facing east or we're facing west, it's the same multi-block structure. So the only thing we have to do is keep track of each of the sides. So this would be the left side, and this would be the right side, or vice versa, depending on how you look at it. So you keep track of those. And these get stored into a static hash map, so this is going to be static for everything. So we're not recreating this each time we make a new tile. There's only 1 map of these. And then we store that. We also keep track of a value for destroying the structure just because we need to. Here's the capability stuff I was talking about, by the way. So for those who are asking what I was doing with the capability and why this mattered for the multi-block. So the launcher base actually, one, it'll check its own inventory first. But the second thing it'll do is go, hey, I'm attached to a screen. Can you pass the capability to that screen? It goes, hey, screen, you have this capability. And if this happens to be like a power check or an inventory check, it'll go down there. Although the inventory check will be captured by the base first, so it won't get down there. But say we had fluid checks or something. We had some other weird capability to pass it along. And this also allows other people to attach capabilities to our tiles too. So say, for example, somebody wanted to add the ability to power their launchers off of magic. They could actually attach a magic capability and then use that to feed energy into the system, however that would work, but they could do it. There's also get capability and a has capability. So these 2 checks will feed back and forth. The multi-blocks do the same exact thing. They basically go, hey host, you have this capability, and the host will go, yeah, I have this capability, and then it'll go, hey host, can I have that capability, and it'll return, and the capability happens to be the power or inventory code. Literally the same inventory system we used in 1.7 that gets passed in. Tons of other checks, launch missile, we'll keep scrolling down here, and at the very bottom, because I usually like to throw all the multi-block code down here, and you'll see a nice little code block. Here's all the multi-block code. So there's checks for on tile address. Every time we add a tile, we go, hey, we set the host of the tile. That way it's got the host updated. This really isn't used that much anymore. The big thing that is still actually is used, and let me reformat that back so I don't mess the code up, is the destroy multi-blocks. Every time you destroy it, actually does use that array above, or hash map above, to check to see if it's inside the multi-block, and then it destroys the structure. Some invalidate checks, it passes on right clicks. Here's the actual part that gets the layout. So when we go to build the multi-block structure, we go to place it, we do anything involved with it, it'll get the layout from here. And of course we can rotate the system. So the system actually does support rotation, although it's not tied into the Forge's rotation system, so you can't just use anything to rotate it, but we'll get to that at some point eventually. So that'll actually build up all that. There's some code that when you go to place the multi-block, will actually place it and work it with all the stuff and actually get it all working. And then if we can find the actual multi-blocks, which I believe I dragged to content earlier, I'm trying to get the stuff cleaned up. We still have a ton of stuff in the lib package that needs reorganized. We still have the old energy code, because what I effectively did was merged everything from Voltage and ICBM to make it standalone. So we have the block multi. So there's a lot of code in here that does for the multi-blocks. It is still really basic. You'll see a lot of mods do over-the-top multi-block code. The whole goal was to make this as simple as possible, and as we go, this is going to get even simpler, because the way we had it built for Voltage Engine was built to be as dynamic and as reusable as possible, but ICBM Classic does not need that code anymore, so it is going to get probably reduced down. But there's some on-block click code. We have some kill checks to make sure that if you click it and it has no host, it'll disappear, so that way you can place blocks over it. I'm going to try to work on a replacement check, so that way if you place a block over a multi-block and the, like, say for example, some freak accident happened, so set time day, time set day. Say some freak accident happened and the base block here in the middle died, but then the multi-blocks didn't happen. What we want to be able to do is simply be able to place right over top of that. And you saw how that actually did it, where I actually clicked with a block and it passed me onto the screen. That's another feature. If you're not clicking with a missile, it'll actually pass it along. It's another beauty of the multi-blocks. I can click anywhere on the multi-block structure and it'll pass code along. That's part of the on-block activated check. It'll actually go tile get host, pass it on, and of course the base actually has code that'll pass it onto the screen. So some destroy checks, everything else. A lot of basic stuff. Pick block, so if you pick block on this, so if I actually wanted to get the launcher base, it'll actually give it to me. Of course, render type's not set to that, and there's another kill check for it. The actual code that I was talking about when it came to the capabilities is right down here. It's really simple. It goes, okay, get host, instead of tile entity, if tile entity has capability, and pass it around. This is the code that I was blew my mind. And the reason it blew my mind, we'll go ahead and show what it looked like in 1.7, because I still work on the 1.7 version, so we'll go a new window here, open up the old workspace. If it doesn't take forever to load. Unfortunate part about trying to load two workspaces. So the old code, which if I can remember how to navigate to it, I believe it is down in the core. So it's in Voltage Engine, framework, multi-block, and then types. So the old code, I did this in Scala, and the reason I did this in Scala is because it's just absolute of a mess. Is we have subtypes for everything. So what most people did in earlier versions of Minecraft before we had the capability system is you had to apply all of your stuff you wanted to use. So if you wanted your multi-block tile to have access to the I-energy handlers, if you wanted it to have access to the I-energy buffers, which by the way, the I-energy buffer is my energy code, this is RUp's energy code. So if you wanted access to this kind of stuff, you had to actually apply it in implements. You had to then implement all the methods, so can connect, has connection, get energy buffer, stuff like that. You got to implement all these methods on there. And that's how you actually got your energy code. And so there's a lot of work involved. So in order to tailor the multi-blocks so that way when I was making a structure and say I wanted to have, say for some reason I decided, hey, I don't want the wires to connect these top parts, I can then go, okay, this bottom part is an energy multi-block, but then these top two are just blank multi-blocks. They don't do anything, have no functionality, etc., etc. So then in order if I wanted to do that, I couldn't just go, hey, return capability only for power. I would have to go, hey, I need a tile that has only I-energy handler on it, and then I need a tile that has nothing on it. And this is effectively what we did. We have a tiled multi-block down here that handles just the blank stuff, and then that is extended right here. So we extend it with multi-block energy, and we do all the energy code. But then say, okay, maybe we want to have an inventory and energy handler. Now we come down here with Scala and go, hey, I need to apply T-sided for my inventory. And now I need to apply the extend the multi-block handler. And of course we do get inventory. This is Scala code, so it looks a little differently. It's the same concept, it just, I don't get why, but Scala likes to reverse a lot of its stuff. So instead of being type then method name, it's method name then type. It's weird. But you would have to repeat the process over and over again from what I was saying. If you want to have tank code, you would have to apply. In this case, we use a lot of traits for this, which is a fancy way of saying pre-built code that we could just mix into the object. So we have a tank version, tank energy, tank inventory, tank everything. A lot of mods I've seen that end up actually start going this path end up actually using code generation to make this stuff for them, which is the path we were going to go with in 1.7, and we might still do that. Because we still plan to update the 1.7 code, so I'm going to probably come back in here and rewrite all this. But in newer versions, since they've added the capability, I believe this is kind of 1.10 plus. I believe 1.9 had capabilities, but they weren't great. But 1.10 plus, they started becoming a lot useful. So now all we have to do And the newer code is use these two things, and that does all our multi-block trade stuff for us. If you want energy code, tank code, power code, if you want absolutely anything, all you have to do is pass it along, and it works. And this is really, really beautiful, because not only does it save a lot of work, it allows some really creative systems. Say I want to connect two different points across dimensions to each other. I don't have to make any fancy code for this. I just have to go, okay, get point across dimension, and give me your capability. And if your capability had power code on it, had inventory code, had something on it, I now have full access to your tile. This allows for remote access too. So say, for example, I made a tile that you can remotely access chest with. I don't have to write any fancy code for it. I just have to go, okay, chest, give me your capability, and now down the tile who is connected to me will think I am that chest. Not just that I have access to the chest, but I am the chest, which is really, really cool. It makes GUIs a lot easier. It makes everything easier. And this stuff is not just for tiles. You can apply the same capabilities to entities and to items. Although the item one's a little finicky, but it works. But you can do all this stuff, and it's amazing. That's the part I was talking about when it comes to multi-block that blew my mind, because we'd experimented with this. Me and Calculator experimented with systems like this back in 1.6, and so on. We had actually had versions of this, but they didn't really get a lot of use, because getting another developer to use your version of this was not exactly the easiest thing to do. Everybody still wanted to use interfaces, everybody wanted to still use all that stuff, but we had something like this, and it was kind of really awesome. I believe I still have a lot of the code, because I actually did end up continuing on with it. If I can find it really quick. I believe it is under the API. I actually don't use it that much, simply because I've actually invented a little nicer system to replace it. It should be somewhere in here. It's like it's a modular container, or like a node container or something. I may have actually finally got rid of it. Here we go. So this is the same system, and this code has existed in the mods pretty much since 1.5, and it's Git modular, so it's the same kind of system. And you look at this code, and you look at the code over here, and they're pretty much the same. The only difference, I don't have a has capability, I just have a get capability. If you don't return a capability, you don't have anything there. I was going to go with a can connect system, but this is what this is actually designed for in the current implementation, is for the modular system I was working on, which worked very similar to the capability system, except I treated it not as the tile had the capability to do something, but a tile had a modular installed. So it had an inventory modular, energy modular, had a grinder modular, had a whole bunch of different stuff. Basic Industries, which is the tech mod I'm actually been working on over the last couple years, does use a system like this, in which I can pretty much build the entire machine like it's Legos. I go, okay, I have machine base, and I want to put a grinder module in it, then I want to put my input modular in there, output modular in there, I want to put a control modular in there, and I'm done. And I now have a grinder that matches IC2's grinder. Kind of using a system like that. But I think that's about everything covered. The last thing, I know a few people have been asking about power code specifically. Right now we only support Forge Energy. There is plans to support RF, although RF supports Forge Energy, so it's not a huge rush. The next thing we'll probably end up actually going after is Buildcraft Energy, then IC2. Although I've heard there's converters, and then of course Mechanism should work with these. I've been told Mechanism works. Actual Edition works, we can see that. So anything that supports the Forge Energy system actually works perfectly fine with this stuff. And what else do we got going? And that's pretty much it. So I'll see you guys later, and I'll do a couple more of these videos talking about some of the mechanics and hopefully get a little better script. I didn't have a script for this video, but we're kind of just winging it, but it works, so I'll see you guys later.